Welcome to another edition of Sound Advice. And in this edition of Sound Advice, I just wanted to go over some EQ tips, some things that will definitely help set that foundation, and then for you to be able to build on that as you start really using EQ. So, with all that being said, I want to go ahead. Let's jump in my DAW and let's talk about some tips of how we can have that foundation on to set so that we can build further on that. All right.
Okay, let's get into talking about some tips to help navigate as you, you know, put things in your workflow, take things out of your workflow. And the first tip that I want to talk about is do not EQ in solo. Okay. And you want to EQ with everything, with everything in the mix, because that's what's going to let you know what EQ curves need to be done. You can have something sounding great on its own, but then once you put it in the mix, it sounds horrible. And it's the opposite way that you solo everything, you EQ everything in the context of the mix, and then you solo what you just EQ and it sounds like crap on its own. But when you put it in the mix, it sounds good. Okay? So that's the reason why you really don't want to use solo. Now for me, what I'm going to say is real quick that when I start after I do my static mix and I start off with my kick, yes, I solo the kick and I EQ the kick on its own. And once I feel like, okay, it sounds good, now I'm turning the bass on. Okay? And 9 times out of 10, with 10 every time, I got to go back and make some adjustments on my kick before I start with my bass. But that's just how I do it. Now, one thing, if you want to work on your low end first, I'm just suggesting, one thing that I also start learning to do is let my bass run with my kick. And, then I go through it like that. But it's still, I find myself going back, messing with the kick again. Once I start processing my bass, I still find myself going back, messing with the kick to get them to play nicely together, to where you got that full punch of the kick and you have that warm, low end sound coming from that bass, or in the upper mid sound that coming from that bass. So, but the main thing is EQ in context of the mix. Tip number 2, EQ in mono as much as possible. Okay? Not every time you're going to be able to just mono everything out. Okay? And it's only a certain portion of the mix that you're going to work in mono, because once you start adding reverbs and echoes and stuff like that, you want to hear that in stereo. Okay? But as you're EQing, as you're compressing, as you may need to use like a summing plugin, or if you have an outboard summing box or something like that, and you can keep it mono, do that. But sometimes you're going to get tracks like loops that are in stereo, and you can make a decision on how you want to approach that. If you want to, is it just best for my workflow to just leave it in stereo? Well, leave it in stereo. Or is it best for my workflow to put it in mono? Then put it in mono. But if the track is already in mono, work it in mono. Don't put the track in stereo. Work it in mono. Basically what I'm trying to say for tip number 2. Tip number 3, use subtractive EQ before you decide to boost. Okay, so look at what you listen to what you have, listen to what needs to be done before you decide to do that 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 cut. So your first mind thought after you listen is, what can I cut to have this to sound better? Per se, of what can I boost to have this to sound better? Because you don't want to have just a whole lot of boosting going on. Because if that's going on, you're gonna have issues down the road. As the mixing goes on, you're gonna have issues, and you're not gonna know where to really tackle your issues because you got so much boosting going on because you wanted to boost before you started kind of cutting things. So take a more gentle approach in not boosting, but let's cut something. Let's carve out some frequency somewhere, because a lot of times when you're just doing that, you're going to enhance because you done lowered some bad frequencies in the mix. Not saying that they're gone, but they're lowered to where they're not heard, and now other frequencies are heard above it. Okay, because you removed it. And and I'm not saying don't boost. No. Just think of cutting first before boosting, because there are times that you got to boost, and don't be afraid to boost, but cut first. And if it don't fix your problem, then you may need to boost a little bit. But I would try to cut two places before I actually do that boost. So just do those kind of, that's just a tip, for you to just think about cutting before boosting. Okay. Tip number 4, use low cut filters. They are your friend. Okay. Now, if you have an instrument, say that you have that guitar, and you have your bass. Well, your bass, you say you did a low pass filtering, a high pass filtering on your bass at 35 hertz. Okay. And so your guitar is not going to get that low. So just go ahead on and take it out. Just take it out, and run that filter until that guitar starts sounding thin, then start inching it back to where it starts sounding full, because you're listening in context with the mix, and now the guitar is sounding it's starting to sound full, and leave it right there. Now, where it sound full at, let's say it sounds full at 150 hertz. Okay. But guess what? All of that low end information that could be on that guitar is gone. So the bass has nothing to fight with. That low end has nothing to fight with the guitar. And that's why you just go ahead and use your high pass filters. I know some will disagree and say you don't need to high pass everything, but for me to be safe, I go ahead and do it, because guess what? That helps me to bring that punch and that low end energy to where it sounds very good. Once everything is almost done, and my low end has the punch and has the rumble that it needs to have, and you still hearing everything else. So, and that's due to the filtering, the high pass filtering. So don't be afraid to use that high pass filtering. Okay, that's another tip. Okay, tip number 5: cut between 400 hertz, 500 hertz to clean up mud. Now, with this, the reason why I gave this tip is for if you choose to, I'm just going to pick my frequencies. Okay, so what I left this tip in here because a lot of problem frequencies are in that 400 to 500. Okay, and you may just want to pick 560 and I'm going to cut at 3 dB, and wow, I got clarity. Good. Or that clarity may not it's still not clear enough, and okay, well, let me find a frequency in that 400 hertz, and you find that, and you cut that, 420 cut, you pick 420 and cut there, and that alleviate a lot of the problems that were going on. So that's why I left that tip in there for you. Another tip, number 6, gentle EQ curves as much as possible. Okay, it's going to be times, especially with a ringing snare, and that ring is so loud that you bring in that Q, you make it real narrow. Remember we talked about a narrow Q, and you may have to make a drastic move like that to try to bring down that ring out of that snare, so that the good stuff from the snare can be heard. And you have to make a real drastic move like that. Okay, but for the most part, like say you got something that's kind of boosted up, you want to be gentle with it. And gentle is like something like this. That's something that's gentle. It's not too sharp and it's not too wide. It's right there. It's just right there in that sweet spot. And that's kind of where you want to be. But also listen when you're widening the Q and sharpening the Q. Listen to how it's being affected. Listen, and then you make your moves of if you're going to do a gentle boost or a gentle cut. But you widen the Q, you're softening, you widen it, you're sharpening it, you're widening it. You're doing your thing to hearing what you need to have. But all I'm saying is, it's like when you're just being gentle with your widening of the Q or sharpening of your Q, when you're just being gentle with the widening of it, is that it sounds more natural. Okay, so tip number 7, use the 3 dB to 6 dB rule in mind. Now, what I mean by that is you picked your frequency, 500 hertz, okay? And you want to cut 500, okay? And that's simply typing in and you putting -3 dB. That's where you start. And just start at -3 dB. That may be all you have to do. And you're fine. Okay. But say it's still not bringing, let me try. So the next number, just go to 6. And what this does is it just takes the guessing game, so that you can do something like, okay, 3 dB didn't work, 6 dB, it worked. Now you can move on to what you need to do next. You're not spending a lot of time, 1.5, let me, maybe it's 7. That sounds like too much. Maybe 6.5. You're just doing like, okay, let's try 3 dB, let's try 6 dB. Now say you still having problems, okay? Well, now make moves in 2 steps. Instead of 3 steps, make a 2-step move, okay? And then you make a 2-step move, okay? So you go from 6 to 8, okay? You make that 2-step move. Then you make another 2-step move. You go from 8 to 10, okay? Now, once you make that kind of a move, now this is when you probably may want to start, okay, let me 1 dB, 1 dB or half a dB. You know what I'm saying? You may want to do that. But it takes the guessing game away. You know what I'm saying? It just takes the guessing game away. And you just started with 3, go to 6. And then, like I said, then go to start moving by 2. So you went 6, go to 8. So just, that's just a way to just, like I said, keep the workflow going. And number 8, I believe we're on, EQ with your ears, not your eyes. So what I mean by that is try not to use that spectrum analyzer. Turn that spectrum analyzer off and use your ears. If you're sweeping those frequencies, close your eyes and sweep. Till you start hearing, ooh, there it is. And now I'm going to cut that by 3 dB. And then you listen to what you did. You come to your bypass in and out, and you listen and be like, yes, that was the correct move. Okay, so use your ears. Your ears are your best tool. Besides EQ, your ears are your best tool because you can hear what you've done when you're carving out your sound. Okay.
Okay, welcome back. And with this, I just wanted to give you some tips to just set a foundation for you. I mean, I didn't, I tried to get some good things in to have a good foundation so that you can have something that you build on. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it's all about, because I can't, I can't teach everything. No one can teach you everything. You have to go out and experience these things. You have to be practicing mixing in order for your mind to work around what you have set a foundation on, so that you can build on top of that foundation. And so hopefully I given a good foundation so that you can start building on that foundation. So the thing is that the biggest thing that I just want you to take away from this is EQ with your ears, not with your eyes. Don't use that spectrum analyzer. Don't use it. Cut it off. If your EQ have that, find the button that can turn it off and turn it off. And use your ears. That's the main tool. That's the most important tool that you have, is your ears. And I just can't express that enough. So use your ears. Get the ear training. And the way you get the ear training is by mixing. Mixing, 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 mixing. Listening, mixing. Listening, mixing. That's the only way. And just one more thing. The cutting and the boosting. I just want to just make sure that don't just start boosting. And don't just start cutting. Listen first. Listen. And then make a decision on, should I make that cut or should I make that boost? Okay? But as a rule of thumb, try to make cuts before you do boosting. Because the main thing with boosting is it will give you a false representation. Okay? Because louder sounds better. And a lot of times that is not the case, especially when it comes to mixing. So if you make some cuts, then that helps with, okay, it's sounding better and you're not being fooled, just because it's gotten louder. So just remember, if you don't remember anything else, just remember those two things. Okay? But I hope this helps. And like I said, we're going to just keep rolling. We're going to keep tackling things. And I just want to also let you know about my website, which is soundadviceforyou.com. And that's where my mixing and mastering services are. And also the music that I do is on my platform. So feel free to just go check it out. If you don't need my services, check out my music. You know what I'm saying? But my services are available. Hit me up. Let's do let's talk and see what we can do with your project or whatever. But with all that being said, this is Sound Advice. My name is Jeff McKenzie, and I'll see you on the next one.